Good morning, students. Today's lesson is going to be done recording. I'm a bit unwell at the moment. I've got a bit of a dodgy eye, as you can probably see there. So I've got to try and keep my screen time to a minimum. Tomorrow I'll try and aim to get a web conference set up, but we'll see how we go. For today's lesson, you need to make sure you have Connect up and running and downloading the PowerPoint, as well as the resources that I'll go through, which will include the future problem solving task, as well as the future problem solving reading and research document and note making document. So if you have a chance, please download that now. But otherwise, I'm going to go through what we're doing today. So we are focusing on our next task, which is a creative writing task through the future problem solving framework. So today we're going to do just a bit of creative writing, and then we're going to do look at that task requirement, and then we're going to look at the reading and research document. So I'm going to do a bit of both in that we look at the composing requirements as expected for the ATAR English, and then we're just going to look at our creative writing task. So, excuse me while my computer's being a little dodgy. It tends to do this for some reason. So I'll try and bring it back up. So we will be doing a bit of independent writing, reading and annotating and doing some note making. Just going to see what I can do to make this a bit better. So what we are going to look at is the criteria for the composing section. You do creative writing in literature, however it's not part of the exam, but it's a part of the course. So as part of your coursework you will do creative writing in lit. In ATAR English you do it in the exam. It's 30% of the course and it's 30% of the exam. Obviously within the coursework it's more heavily weighted than it would be in the exam, so it does give those people who really enjoy that creative aspect an opportunity to really showcase their skills as writers. So what we are looking for in this section of the exam is your ability to control language and use language effectively for a particular purpose and audience. So if I go through here, straight from the Year 11 and 12 ATAR syllabus, English syllabus, what we're wanting is you to demonstrate control and a sense of audience and knowing those conventions of genre, whether it be that of imaginative, so narrative writing, or persuasive, or whether it be a sci-fi or western. So what we're wanting to see is you as an author making choices with regard to the content you're selecting and how you can shape that to suit the question, but also suit the chosen audience. Remembering that it is quite a hypothetical, you can determine the audience and you can determine the purpose as long as it fits within the realms of the question. So what we are after, first and foremost for this section, is control of language. So this is your opportunity to make those choices as an author and to kind of explain what your effect is. Often in the short answer section we're asking you to consider language and the effect of that language. Well, now is your chance. Why did you use that word over this word, or why did you use that simile instead of a metaphor, for example? So being able to explain those choices. And what we need to consider is how we're using language to control the tone and mood of a piece of writing. This is starting to annoy me now. What we need to consider is what language you would expect to find in the three different domains. And that's imaginative, persuasive, informative, and interpretive. Or informative is not a domain, but interpretive is. So if you consider what languages would you expect to find in these three sections, persuasive, imaginative, and interpretive, have a go now at just writing down a few dot points as to which and what you would expect to find in those three forms. So persuasive is your speeches, letters, etc. Imaginative, short stories, letters, scripts, etc. Interpretive is anything in which you are interpreting an event, a person, an idea. Okay, so it can be a news article, it can be a biography or an autobiography. The main thing to remember with interpretive, it's kind of a mix between persuasive and narrative, more persuasive than narrative, but not as persuasive as, say, like a political speech. So I like to refer to it as sort of persuasive light. So consider now what language devices you'd expect to find for each. Once you've done that, the next thing we need to consider is the audience. This is something that I think a lot of students fall down on in Year 11 and 12 ATAR, is that they don't have a clear audience in mind. who is this piece intended for, and something we've got to consider first and foremost. Now, it will depend on the form and the content. The audience will dictate that, so you need to consider the audience's values and attitudes. I think this is particularly important for when you're doing persuasive writing. A lot of people kind of forget that we don't persuade by necessarily attack. You need to consider the values and attitudes that the audience hold and then work to manipulate them. So it's always important to consider those values and attitudes for a persuasive piece, for example. But in general, you need to know your audience because that will dictate what language you use. One of the last things is to consider the generic conventions. Okay, this is one thing a marker is always looking for. If you're writing a play script, we want to see you write it correctly with correctly formatted stage directions, for example, anything like that. So just something to keep in mind. Know your genre, so know your text types and your genres. So particularly when it gets to a point in year 12 when you're asked to subvert or challenge, those two words come up in the composing section a lot. So it's something you need to be mindful of. How can you challenge? I just think back to the year 12 composing task we did a few weeks ago. 2 of the questions had challenge or subvert in it. So what are you going to do to make that piece just a little bit different? Okay. And finally, the thing that most people overlook is engagement with the question. So in the composing section, there are normally 5 prompts or questions. You still need to engage with them because they are the biggest component of the marking key. So if you fail to engage with the question or prompt, will result in a lesser mark. So what you want to be doing is choosing a form that's best suited to those questions, but also to the audience's context and purpose, remembering that you have the control as to who the audience and purpose are. And then finally, this is really so annoying, responses that explore more sophisticated perspectives and ideas that will also show engagement with the question keystone may be a discriminator. What that means is we're looking for innovation. So something, we're looking for a refinement and polish in this section, even though we know it is a draft in the exam situation. What we are looking for is polish. We want to see stories that aren't just cliche, stories about high school drama because they've been done, and remember that's what everyone else is going to be doing. So you want to do something that sets you apart, but it's how you engage with the question that's on the page, not the question that you want it to be, because at the end of the day, it comes back to that, what's in front of you on the page. So a lot of people, I know a lot of schools still encourage students to write pre-planned responses, particularly in the composing section, and try and manipulate it around the question that's on front of them. But sometimes, or often, this leads to like a fail mark because they haven't addressed the question in front of them. So interrogating that question is first and foremost, that should be at the top of your mind. And you just do it the same way we do short answer questions and the same way we do essay questions using the 4 C's. Command, what's the command, what's the conditional, what's the critical, and what's the concept. So, just like in short answer, there are concepts in the composing section that you need to address. Okay. Other things I want you to consider is to pause this slide and take these down. Okay. This is what we should be considering whenever we're drafting a response. Form, language, audience, purpose, and context. Now, up here it says this is the longest paragraph and must discuss 6 to 10. Ignore that. Back in the day, about 5-6 years ago, you used to actually have to write a statement of intent at the start of your composing. You don't have to do that anymore. In fact, it's discouraged. What we are after is you to consider doing a plan, spending 10 to 15 minutes planning this section in an exam situation, because failure to plan to fail. So this was taken from when we had to write statements of intent. I still encourage students to do that planning, not a statement of intent, but plan where you're thinking of the form, the language, the audience, the purpose, and the context. So it would be worthwhile for you now to copy that down. So it might be a good idea to pause the video just there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is actually look at a prompt. Okay, this is for practice. So here's a prompt taken from a Year 12 paper that I made for this year's Year 12s. So, a man with dishevelled hair sat patiently at the table. Compose a narrative that starts and ends with this line. Okay, so what I would like you to do is write the opening to this narrative. Now, I don't want you to do the end, even though it says here. I just want you to start the opening, and obviously the opening, you have to incorporate this line. So with this sort of question, what we're looking for, it's a question about structure really, because after you to create that open and end. So that would be your concept here, even though it's not explicit, it's implied. Other things that we could consider is, characterization. What do we know about this man? Okay, is this man the protagonist, or is it a side character? Who knows? So you've got a lot of scope with a question like this. So just in the preliminary stage, you just got to think, okay, who's this man? What is he doing sitting there? This disheveled hair but sitting patiently. So what do we know about his character just from this one line? It gives you quite a lot. Now, again, I don't want you to write the end, because we're going to use this for an activity tomorrow where you actually work with a partner, your shoulder partner. We'll see how that goes with WebEx, but fingers crossed. So at this very start, write this question down so you've got it in front of you in your pages, and then go through the form, language, audience, purpose. Leave context for the time being. Context is normally something you would apply to a persuasive or interpretive text. Obviously, it's something that could be interesting to consider for a narrative, but at the very least, I just want you to consider the form. So is it going to be a short story, or, could it be a play script? Could it be a letter? I don't know. It's completely up to you how you interpret it. What language are you going to use, the audience and the purpose? So that's something that will come as you start to develop your ideas. But at the very least, consider those four with maybe just a thought for context. What I want you then to do is just write that opening. So I then want you to submit that response to the discussion page by 4:30 today. It will make sense. Why? Because tomorrow we're going to use it, and you're going to get a partner to write the last half of your response to see if they can interpret what you've written and see if they can continue that direction. So submit it to the discussion page, and you'll see where that is in discussion. Ensure, please, that you use correct English and grammar where appropriate. Obviously, if you're using incorrect spelling for a purpose, that is fine. Likewise, if you're using incorrect grammar for a purpose to show dialect or something like that, that is fine. And one thing I just want to bring up before we get too far into the online space is that if you're failing to submit work, it will result in phone calls home. And there hasn't been an issue yet, but I'm just letting people know, because we still need to maintain a certain degree of rigor and urgency when we're doing these online lessons. So can you please work on that opening, maybe about a page of handwritten or maybe 300 to 400 typed, and post to the discussion page by 4:30 today. Something else I want you to consider, let me just check the timing, 2.5 minutes. Something else I want you to consider is the resources that are available on Connect. When you get a moment and Connect is not being too crap, please download the following 2 documents: Elements of Fiction and Composing Under Pressure. You're going to need both when you're completing the tasks, this task, particularly the composing, this one here. Oh, hey, does this even work? Hey, look at that. Whee! You definitely need this one. It's a great resource that will help with the creative writing, so something to consider. Now, the future problem-solving task. We have changed the date because we've had to. School is not on next week. It's just your start to holiday, so we can't make it due next week. So it's due week 1 of term 2, which will be a Monday. There'll be a series of tasks to complete along the way, so you'll be required to submit a draft, for example. But that will make sense as we continue these little lectures. Now, finally, the last thing I want you to do is on Connect, there is a note-taking sheet. So for the future problem-solving, I'll show you what that looks like. So here, this one here, you'll see it looks like this. What I want you to do is open the readings and research booklet to gather information about your topic or theme and the key points. So that booklet, I'll show you what it looks like, is this one here, 2020 Readings and Research and Resources. So it's this one here. Now in this booklet, it is separated by the different themes and the different situations. So if you scroll down, you see the first one, international travel. So it gives you some interesting discussions and resources, 1 to 17, you can go have a look. So if you're set on a particular topic, have a look at each and then kind of decide, a bit further what themes and concepts you could perhaps explore. So you obviously have to scroll through a bit to get to the topic that interests you. So I would like you to complete that by 4:30 today, just for your topic. Okay, making sure you save it with where possible, put your name up the top. So that's the first thing that I see. Okay, I'll be in touch. Hopefully we can organize a WebEx for tomorrow just to see how we're all going. But just to confirm or to clarify, discussion, please post your creative writing prompt as well as the future problem solving, note taking. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Any questions, just email me. Cheers.